no. Why do people keep doing this? It's driving me crazy. Hi, welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. This is Boost My Build, the series where we take your PC part picker list, we tear them up, and we put them back together, and we massively increase your performance. And man, we've got massive bottlenecks all over these builds today. We've got bottlenecks, the CPU, the GPU, the RAM, SSD cooling, and more. Remember, if you get value out of the video, give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. We've got Nuxus. Nuxus says, hey Jason, this is my first build. Congratulations on your first build. I can't wait. Their budget's $750. They can go up to $800 if they need to, and they want to play two types of games. Shooter games at 165 plus FPS. Okay, for $800, that might be tough. And they want to play story games like God of War or Spider-Man at mid to high settings, 100 plus FPS. I think we're talking about 1080p here, maybe 1440p. We can get some of these titles, but we'll have to see. Let's see what you've got. Okay, I'm looking at your build here. I don't absolutely hate it, but I'm really questioning why we've decided on some of these parts choices. I'm seeing $694. We're at $700, but there's no price being pulled in for your PSU. PSUs for this level are about $70 right now. So we're kind of in between that $750 and $800. And I just feel like we're not getting a ton of performance here for our money. This build to me is more like a $600 build than an $800 build. Let's punch through some of these parts. i3-12100F, perfectly fine CPU, have no problem with it. You could also go Ryzen 5500, possibly the Ryzen 5600. That'll give you a slight boost at higher GPU levels. That being said, the GPU that we pulled in is the ASRock Challenger Radeon RX 6600. Don't mind this GPU. I think it's selling for $220 right now. Kind of hard to beat, $220. I know during Black Friday, these went down to like $190. I was totally insane, but even at $220, great value. That being said, 1080p levels of performance. We're not talking 1440p. We're certainly not talking super high FPS like you were looking for in some of these titles, maybe at 1080p in competitive settings. I'm just questioning what's going on with a liquid cooler on an i3-12100F that comes with an included box cooler that is absolutely adequate for our needs. At this budget level, this is just a waste of money. I don't mind liquid cooling. I don't mind adding in cool aesthetics, but at $800, especially if you want more FPS, this is just costing us performance right now rather than adding performance just for some aesthetics that we could always add this in later. Similarly, I want to warn people about the Gigabyte B660M AORS Pro AX. When this motherboard first came out, I thought it had improved audio on it. In fact, I found out because Gigabyte does not list this on their website, and I've told them that they need to, but I did reach out to Gigabyte and ask them, well, what is the codec on this thing before I have to go to the store and buy it myself just to look at the codec on the chip? And they did confirm this is ALC 897. It's entry-level audio. So to me, this is no better really than the Gigabyte DS3H for like $50 less. I wouldn't grab this motherboard. If you want improved audio, unfortunately on B660 motherboards, you're looking to spend $170, which is quite a bit of cash. I like Team Force. I like the white ARGB kits. I think 3600 CL18, perfectly fine, essentially the same speed as 3200 CL16. I don't mind all this, but for $60, I'm just wondering, RGB RAM, do we really need RGB RAM when we've only got an RX 6600 in this build? Bitphoenix Nova Mesh, I don't have a problem with this case. Yeah, we could have saved $10 going with a cheaper case with Molex fans and things like that. But honestly, I don't mind $10 here. The case is considerably nicer to look at, going to be better acoustically. I just think overall you did a great job selecting this case. In terms of the storage, 512 gigabytes, MP33, that's one of the better in terms of price to performance. NVMe drives out there, that's a really good pickup. The Roswell Hive would be normally a pretty good pickup. It's a C-tier rated PSU, but unfortunately completely sold out right now, so we'll have to find you another unit. All told, for over $700, especially once we add in a real PSU price in here, I'm just not seeing the performance here. I feel like we're really overpaying for a lot of aesthetics and a lot of things that we thought we were getting that aren't really going to be of use to us. I called this the $800 1440p gaming PC beast because this is going to give you beastly FPS, not just at 1080p, but also at 1440p. It's gonna crush the GPU CPU combo you put together just a moment ago. Let's punch through this. Now, I finished just $30 more than you did, about $799.34. That's right, under your $800 stretch budget. I think it's definitely worth the investment here. Let's go through what I got. I stuck it out with the i3 1200F. If I had another 30 or 40 bucks, I would have gone with the Ryzen 5600 here. It will give us slightly more, about 10% more performance at the GPU level that we have. That being said, we hit your hard cap, so I stuck it out with the i3 1200F. Certainly no slouch, and a CPU I continue to recommend for budget builds. Now, it comes with an included box cooler. That's what we're going to use in our 12100F build. It was absolutely adequate, even under load. You could barely hear that thing. I would stay with that cooler unless you want to add some bling in the future, which you can do. And we're going to pair that with the ASRock B660M Phantom Gaming 4 $109 motherboard. You're just looking for a B660 entry-level motherboard here with a couple of heat sinks on the VRMs, decent-ish rear panel. So that's like the DS3H, B660M, ASRock, Phantom Gaming, any of those kinds of class of motherboard. I'll leave a couple linked down in the video description. Now, the GPU we got on this thing is gonna rock that 6600 that you were looking at. We got the Gigabyte Gaming OC Radeon RX 6750 XT. This is gonna give you massively more performance, almost double the performance at 1440p of the GPU that you were looking at. This thing's an absolute beast, 100 plus FPS in all of those titles, even at very high settings. And if you turn them down to competitive settings, you're gonna pump out 150, 160 FPS, no problem in many of those titles. Valorant and things like that, you'll get hundreds of FPS. Overwatch 2, those kinds of shooter games, hundreds of FPS, no problem. And for games like Spider-Man or God of War, will also give great performance at 1440p. I wanted to give you a little bit of the RGB RAM aesthetic, so I just went with a cheaper RGB RAM kit. This is a 3200 CL16 kit, Silicon Power. This is a kit we've used. In fact, I think I used this in the i3 12100 build just to give it a little bit of extra bling. These look really, really nice. And the great thing about that RGB RAM kit is only costs $50. Storage, I stuck it out with your drive, good drive. I stuck it out with your case, great case. But for the power supply, we obviously needed to have something that's actually in stock. We're just looking for something on the PSU Cultist tier list that's C rated or better. And honestly, we're looking for about 650 to 700 watts here. So I went ahead and grabbed the EVGA GD 700 watt. This is a C tier rated unit. It's not modular. It's got all the cables here. However, they're all sleeved. They're all black cables. They will look very, very nice. This is going to give you all the power you need, and it's going to give you all the connectivity you need. So for $799, only about 20 or 30 bucks more than the system you were going to build, we're going to get you almost double the FPS that you were looking at 1440p. This is an absolute beast of a CPU and GPU combo here. We're going to stay with RGB RAM, and we're going to stay with that cool looking case, and we're actually going to get you a PSU that really exists. So I hope you feel like your build is boosted. We've got Ormac 2780, and they say they're currently using an i7 7700K and GTX 1080 for their setup. They think it's time to buy a whole new setup. Absolutely, that's the way to go if you need an upgrade. This is going to be their first attempt to build their own PC. They want our opinion. They work for a university eSports department, and they specialize in Valorant. They need a computer with as much performance as they can get in all areas: video editing, gaming, graphic design, etc. Wow, okay. And they believe that Valorant's CPU-intensive esports title, so they want a strong CPU to push high frames. That's actually backwards. We'll talk about that in a second. Requirements are that they have to stick to NVIDIA and Intel. I'm going to assume that's because your university department gets funding from NVIDIA or Intel, and they have some kind of exclusivity agreement. So we'll definitely stick to that. They're in the US. $1,200 is their budget. They're willing to stretch to $1,400. Let's see what you got. No. Why do people keep doing this? It's driving me crazy. What am I talking about? I'm talking about massively mismatching your components based on just getting an idea in your head that you have to focus around one particular thing. In your case, I could tell right off the bat when you're talking about the CPU, Valorant being a CPU intensive title, it's not actually. It's GPU intensive, but the GPUs push so many frames, hundreds of frames, because it's such an easy to run title that yes, upgrading your CPU can increase the overall performance. You're talking 400 plus FPS. You can't get a monitor to display that. It really doesn't matter. You're going to be just fine. And it's ended up costing you because you have a 13600KF. Great CPU, by the way. A little questionable why we didn't go with a K, as that has an integrated GPU, which when doing video export, or video export only as part of the video editing process, Intel QuickSync will help you export those videos faster. It doesn't help gaming, doesn't help other things, but $300 on our CPU. And then we really shortchanged our GPU. We ended up with an RTX 3060. Plenty for Valorant at 1080p, plenty for video editing. But I'm just also thinking about Valorant can't be the only title your esports department runs. They have to be running other titles as well. And this is going to fall short, especially if you're looking at 1440p, 4K. I don't even know what settings you're looking at or other games. So ending up with a 3060 feels really, really wrong for this price point. But then we've got other massive problems with the 13600K. You went with the id cooling SE224XT. This is a great cooler, but it's not designed for this level of CPU. This CPU is going to absolutely destroy this poor little cooler. This is a great cooler for a 12400 or a 5600, 5600X level CPU. This is not for a 13600K, which has massively high power draw on it. It's going to put out tons and tons of heat. You're going to super bottleneck that CPU that you're spending all that money for because of the cooler. And another problem here, we're going with a Gigabyte B660M DS3H. What, Jason, you recommend this board all the time? Yeah, for like an i3-12100, I would recommend it. But it has been shown in testing that this board, for whatever reason, at least when it first came out, would not run CPUs higher than 6 core counts properly at the proper boost frequency. The other thing is the B660 motherboards will only run them for a certain boost period, unlike the Z series motherboards that will run them boosted indefinitely as long as there's CPU cooling available, which we just went through as a real problem. So I would not go with this board. Now, it's possible that Gigabyte has fixed through BIOS updates this board in order to run higher core count CPUs. That being said, why go down that road? Z series motherboards are almost the same price. Why wouldn't you get one? I got more problems here. You said video editing, all this design work is a big part of it. I think that's an automatic 32 gigabytes of RAM for you. Just get 32 gigabytes. No reason to get 16 now. You could always get 16 in the future. That being said, get it now while you can, and while there's a discount between 16 and 32 gigabytes. Silicon Power A60 is fine-ish. I'd probably like to see something with a DRAM cache for video editing. That being said, we could definitely get away with this. 1 terabyte feels a little tight. Maybe think about 2. Just minor aesthetic notes. You're working in an esports department. Is anyone going to see your PC? Does that look like a gaming PC to you? No, it doesn't. So I think aesthetics are important. Now, this is a fine case. This is a case that I used to recommend all the time years ago, before cases really kind of developed. This case is relatively old tooling. That being said, it's absolutely fine, but for like $67, $68, well, we could just do a lot better. The PSU is absolutely fine. Don't have a problem with it. My problem is for $1,225, I feel like we've left so much performance on the table. This thing is going to absolutely bottleneck. Take your pick, either the motherboard, either insufficient cooling, not enough RAM. The GPU is going to bottleneck us with the CPU. We just got bottlenecks all over the place, and we can do so much better. So I called this the $1,400 esports gaming and video editing PC, and I have to tell you, this is one of the builds that I've struggled the most with in recent months on Boost My Build, because your budget's kind of in a gray zone right now. You'll note that I finished just under $1,400, and honestly, if you had like $80 more to spend, I could even made this a much better PC, but I feel like we're rubbing up against having too many objectives. We want to be great at gaming, we want to be great at video editing, great at all this graphic design work, and we're stretching ourselves a little thin. We're looking for a hybrid system that's going to do everything kind of well, but nothing exceptionally well. In order to do something exceptionally well, we'd need to either spend more money or we'd need to get rid of some of the other objectives. So I went, for instance, with what I felt like is a pretty good compromise on the CPU. I went with the i5-12600KF. Again, another 20 or 30 bucks here. I probably would have gotten the K for the reasons I've already stated about that. But this is going to give you, at this GPU level, plenty of performance, very, very robust CPU, something that you can upgrade the GPU later in the future and keep going. The other great thing about buying into the LGA 1700 platform is at some point you could get a 13600K used CPU a couple of years down the line, or even a 13900K. And I wanted to make sure to get you a motherboard that's going to grow with you, and that's the Gigabyte Z690 Gaming X. Yes, considerably more expensive than that DS3H that I would only recommend for low core count CPUs, but this gives you 4 M.2 slots. You're going to find, especially if you do a lot of video editing, if you do a lot of graphic design work, you're going to start filling up this board with storage, tons tons and tons of storage. So I wanted to get you something good. I also wanted to get you a board with good audio, and this has ALC 1220 audio codec on it. Also, the VRMs on this board are super rock solid. You could put a 13900K here or KS whenever they come out with it, and this is absolutely gonna rock everything that you're doing. For the cooler, I went with the Thermalright Peerless Assassin 120. I've just been on a kick with this cooler lately. The price has come down again to $35, which is just totally insane for it. There's an ARGB version if you want to go more of a gamery look for like $5 more. Go ahead and grab that. I think that's the SE model, but two fin stacks, 2 fans, 6 heat pipes on it. This is going to give you adequate cooling even for the 13600K if you decide to invest a little bit more in that CPU. For the RAM, I went ahead and got you 32 gigabytes of RAM. I think you're going to need it. I think you're going to want it in the future, especially if you're going to have all these applications later on top of each other while you're gaming and doing other things. 3600 CL16 is relatively fast memory, especially if we're going to play all of our games at 1080p. We will see a frame rate pickup by going with slightly faster memory at 3600 CL16 than something like 3200 CL16, which I did consider for cost reasons, but it's only a savings of about $30, so I decided to go ahead and make a little splurge here. For the drive, I went with 2 terabytes Kingston NV2. This is a PCIe Gen 4. It doesn't have a DRAM cache, just know that. It's kind of a compromise. That being said, it is relatively fast, especially on reads. If you're doing a lot of really super heavy writes, maybe spend $30 or $40 more and go with a drive like the 980 Pro that's going to have a DRAM cache. That being said, mostly in video editing, yes, you do some writes to this initially, but then you're just doing a lot of reads to it. So I think this is going to be an absolutely adequate drive, and for $109, it's pretty hard to beat. For the GPU, unfortunately, NVIDIA GPUs are largely sold out. Anything above a 3070. I tried to squeeze a 3070 in. 3060 Ti still has way more performance than an RTX 3060. I would have loved to have put an AMD GPU in here, like a 6800 that would absolutely crush this. Not going to probably do as well on the video editing, but would have been fine. Would have given you more frames on the gaming side. I know you're stuck with Intel and NVIDIA, unfortunately. That being said, 3060 Ti right now, this GPU is going for $449 is a little bit more than it has been going for. They are beginning to kind of sell through these GPUs. You could also consider waiting for like the RTX 4070 Ti, see what the pricing comes out. The rumor is that card's going to be announced sometime in January during CES. We'll have to see what NVIDIA actually announces, see what the price to performance on that card is, maybe consider that. For the case, I just went with something that looks a little bit more like a gamer eSports kind of case, and that's the BitPhoenix Nova Mesh SE. Now look, this is a no frills case other than the ARGB. It's got all mesh on it. It does have a PSU power shroud down here. That's super nice. For the cost compromise of this case right now for $65, 4 included ARGB fans in it, this is going to give you way more performance, and it's $2 cheaper than that nasty kind of all black Cougar, just sheet metal case. For the power supply, I didn't mind yours. It just happens to be kind of overpriced right now, so I swapped it out for another 750 watt unit. This is Corsair RM X750. This is a very, very good unit. I would absolutely use this in any build, fully modular, A-tier rated. So all told, for $1,392, I feel really good about where we came out. We right-sized your CPU. We got you a much better motherboard that's going to give you longevity in this build. You're going to be able to continue to add storage to it. We got you 32 gigabytes of RAM, so you can do all those creative tasks without having to worry about it. We got you 2 terabytes of relatively fast storage. Again, a hybridized model. We upgraded your GPU from a 3060 to a 3060 Ti, and aesthetically, this is going to actually look like you work for an eSports department, so I hope you feel like your build is boosted. Okay, we've got Zach Hawkins 5387. They want to build their first PC soon. Sadly, it's looking like they won't be able till tax refund time. That's April 15th in the United States. Oh no. They mostly play Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2. They want to build something better than their Xbox Series S. Highest FPS possible between 1080p and 1440p, but they don't want to go over $1,000. They can go above if needed. Let's see what you got. Ooh, Zach, ouch, 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 ouch. Look at $1,343. You're way over your budget. You can see right now that the GPU you're looking for is essentially out of stock. But even if we put one in that's in stock, which would be about $100 cheaper, you're still like $200 and something over your budget. And I can see we've just got a lot of extra features in here that maybe we don't really need if we really want to just focus on that super high FPS, which you stated that you wanted. Let's start off with the CPU. Do we really need a 5800X for $237? Yeah, it's nice to have the extra cores and threads, but doesn't going to give us any additional FPS in gaming? Probably not at the GPU that we've picked out. And the GPU we've picked out is the MSI Gaming X30 Radeon RX 6750 XT. Now, unfortunately, this card looks like it's essentially sold out, but 6750 XTs are essentially going for about $379. Not a bad price. I'd love to see if we can jump you up to a 6800 though for about $500 instead. I don't mind the MSI Mag Core Liquid. I know Greg Salazar's channel has done a lot about these coolers clogging up and having some technical problems on certain model numbers of them. You can check his channel out for more information on that. 5800X might want a liquid cooler like this. It's just a lot of money to spend otherwise on a pretty tight budget. We went with a relatively expensive Asus ROG Strix B550-F Wi-Fi 2. Great motherboard. Again, I have it sitting in the build next to me. I absolutely love it. I'm just questioning $200 on a build like this where we could be using that money in our GPU instead. Same problem with memory here. 3200 CL16. If you want to play 1080p, I would recommend looking at 3600 CL16 kits instead. They're going to give you a little bit of a speed boost, and honestly, you can get non-RGB kits for cheaper than this RGB one. Silicon Power A61 terabyte, no problem whatsoever. You're just looking for cheap NVMe storage. You did a great job there. I like the Antec NX410 case. It's kind of just a no frills, a couple of ARGB fans case. Perfect for this budget level too at about $65. The PSU, the 750 watt unit, kind of oversized for this build. End up spending quite a bit of money here. It also looks like it's relatively out of stock. So the price we're seeing, it looks like a third party seller, and that's why it's $127 when these PSUs should really be more like $100. Overall, I just feel like we're spending a lot of money in all the wrong places, emphasizing features that we absolutely do not need, and that's the source of our huge amount of over budget right now at $1,343. I just feel like we could do a lot better and get much closer to our budget with the performance that you're looking for. So I called this the $1,000 1440p High FPS Gaming PC. Super high FPS, way more than the rig that you put together, and it's only going to cost an actual $1,000, not $1,300 and something like the PC that you had parted out. How do we do that? Well, we got rid of all the crazy frills and all the extras that you don't necessarily need, because remember, you said you wanted the max FPS. That was the most important thing to you. So we simply went back to what are our goals? Max FPS. Let's get rid of anything that's going to get in our way of max FPS. And we right-sized the CPU and the GPU for this. So we went with the Ryzen 5600 for $134, $100 less than the 5800X. We don't need that level of CPU. Yes, would it technically give us a couple percentage more on our GPU, on our FPS? It would, but it's going to cost us another $100, and we won't be able to afford the big GPU that we want if we do that. So going this route, cheaper CPU, more expensive GPU, is going to give us more performance. We're going to use the included stock cooler in that, something that you can upgrade in the future, or for 20 or 30 bucks, you can simply get, a Tower air cooler, SE214XT, the Deep Cool AK400. Those are all good coolers. For the GPU, we went with a Power Color Fighter OC Radeon RX 6800 for $500. Most of the high-end GPUs are completely gone right now. Now listen, you can wait until NVIDIA introduces what will probably be the 4070 Ti. See what the price there is. I seriously doubt it's going to be around $500. It's going to be a while until we get $500 level GPUs. Possibly AMD may go ahead and announce some in January. Right now, the best GPU deal, if you want max FPS, is the Power Color Fighter OC Radeon RX 6800 for $500, unless you're going to spend like a lot more money and you're looking at it's like a 7900 XT, XTX, or a 4080, but then you're talking about GPUs that cost as much as your entire budget. For the motherboard, I went with a relatively new but kind of an old motherboard. This is the MSI Gaming Gen 3. What is this? This is basically a reskinned Tomahawk Pro 4 B450 board with a B550 chipset on it. They just came up with a new name for it. Still good motherboard, relatively entry-level features, but it's only $114. It's going to allow us to get under your budget. If you want to go with something with improved audio, I don't mind if you want to invest a little bit more, go a little bit above your $1,000 budget in order to invest in a better feature set on the motherboard. Look for something like the Aorus Gigabyte B550 or a B550 MSI Tomahawk, those kind of boards. You can get those for about $170, but right now, $115. This board is a super steal. For the RAM, I actually got you faster RAM for cheaper. We went with a 2x8 GB kit, DDR4 3600 CL16. Especially if you end up playing at 1080p, this is going to give you a lot more frames than 3200 CL16. Now, if you're going to go to 1440p, doesn't matter as much. You can certainly go with your RGB kit instead. I just wanted to give you the option if you do want to do 1080p and get even more frames with something like the RX 6800, this is going to give you more performance. I also just went ahead and right-sized your power supply. 650 watts is really all we need for this build. And we went with an A-tier rated unit, an Enermax Revolution DF. These are back in stock at about $80. These are a great pickup, fully modular, absolutely great unit. So look at that, for just over $1,000, $1,011, we're gonna get you a PC that's gonna give you massively more FPS at 1080p or 1440p, whatever you decide to play. We've upgraded your memory speed to take advantage if you do go 1080p on that, and we've right-sized the CPU motherboard combination, so I hope you feel like your build is boosted. Remember, if you got value out of the video, give it a like, because it makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe and click that bell icon, that way you get notified when we release cool content. If you're looking for a build to do right now for 1440p, only $660, check out this video. We go through 3 different builds starting at $660, 1440p, and go all the way up to an amazing 4K build. And we'll catch you on the next one.